Good evening, and I'm gonna call this meeting to order. We're gonna stand up for the pledge of allegiance. Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Move on to roll call.
Mayor Villarreal,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Flores.
Here.
Councilmember Nave,
Here.
Councilmember Soria, and Councilmember Sanchez.
Here.
All in favor.
At this time, we're gonna move into closed session to resume soon. We're back from closed session. We have nothing to report at this time. We're gonna move on to the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion? I move. We approve the agenda. I have a motion for me, the second by Soya. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Well, motion carries 5-0.
We're gonna move on to council report. We can start by that and we open it up. Thank you.
Good to see everybody here though. And save one.
How much I need that?
Welcome everybody. Good to see everybody back. I've seen a couple of football games. I've got a few here now. Look at all of it. It's kind of on the fundraiser. There's been a lot of great community events, but more coming up in October. Floating pumpkin patch. There's forward to October. Putting it out. I'm trying to change some of the meet them and Michigan State.
Thank you. So I also attended the Rotary Margarita and Tequila tasting. It was quite fun.
So much.
There was a lot of laughter. It was great. I attended the coalition meeting at the Chamber of Commerce, which was very, very informational. It was really, really cool. We also attended the Kiwanis Reverse Straw Dinner. That wasn't as eventful as the Rotary Margarita and Tequila tasting, but it was still pretty cool. Misty and I worked the baked potato fundraiser with Bertie, and man, that's a lot of work. We were there for like 2 hours, but it was fun. It was fun, but don't use too much bacon bits. I gotta yell that. I also attended the Cardinal football game, and just remind everybody that there is the health fair on Saturday. Are you talking about it, Emily? The health fair?
No.
Oh, we are having a varsity event from 8 to noon. You guys remember the last varsity event? So if you guys aren't doing anything, come by and help. We'll be at the Wellness Center for lunch. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I also attended the Rotary Tequila tasting, which was like it was fun. And the Kiwanis Reverse Dinner, I didn't win. I got close though. I think it was like 16. I mean, I lasted a long time on that. And I also attended the homecoming football game, and my niece won homecoming, so I'm super stoked about that. I attended the League of Cities last week from Tuesday to Friday. That was an eventful week. Did a lot of networking. I don't know how many times I explained where Lindsay was. Probably over, I know a lot. But I mean, there's a lot. I was running out of people. Where's Lindsay? I mean, I'm like, and then, just kind of like, you guys supposed to do this. So, I mean, it was cool because I'm super proud of you for Lindsay. But yeah, so I did a lot of networking with that. I did the potato sale, which I appreciate you doing that for the city. Did you sell out? Almost. And I met with a couple of department people too. So it was cool to have like a week off and just go around and talk to some of our people that are doing great things here in our city. So that's all I have to report. We're moving on to public comment. Members of the public may address the city council on matters within the jurisdiction of the city of Lindsay. Persons wishing to address the council concerning an item on the agenda will be invited to address the council during the time that council is considering that agenda item. Persons wishing to address the council concerning issues not on the agenda will be invited to address council during the public comment portion of the meeting. When invited by the mayor to speak, please step up to the lectern, state your name and city residence, and make your comments. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. At this time, we'll take public comments. Did you see what he said in the public comments? All right. Are you, yeah? Okay, let's go. I know.
Good evening, council. My name is Neva Mesco. I'm here representing TK as part of the city engineer team. So we would like to extend the invitation to our blood workers. It is a family event. We have food, drinks, and it's just a time to say thank you to all of our clients. So please feel free to come in, stop by. It's in the afternoon or Friday night, downtown Visalia. We shut down the block on the side of our office, which is Burke. And we're there from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. or so. So please feel free to come and join us this event. Thank you for seeing that. Thank you. Free for everything that's free. And some chills the next. Ooh. Free is, I know, free is for me. You know what public comment? All right, public comment is good. Moving on to the city manager report. Right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll keep this briefer than usual, because we're gonna talk quite a bit about budget stuff. But since the last meeting, we had, I had a great meeting with MDS's executive staff. We had some individuals, some of their leadership from Germany, come to Lindsay, talk about some of the future plans. They're interested in doing some expansion. We created a standing meeting with the city, their leadership, the railroad, as well as with the county. They're interested in a project to upgrade the rail line so that they can get thousands of trucks a year off the road, off city roads, which would be helpful not just from an emission standpoint, but also from the state of our roads, as well as you know, helping them from a cost standpoint too. A little more efficient from a dollar standpoint. So that's kind of exciting. Good stuff happening there. There are some changes to the Tulare County Seat Development Corporation. Executive director recently resigned from that position. So I think there's some talks and discussions about evaluating what that looks like moving forward. So stay tuned. There's not really anything else to report other than there's you know, probably going to be some more changes in that arena before it's all said and done. As the mayor mentioned, attended the League of Cities last week. People asked me where Lindsay was, and I told them to South Ponyville. So that's in the but other than that, meeting with folks. This off. Like where's that? Well, it's north of Sweet story. So it was good. A lot of good networking with folks. I know we have an item on Christmas decor. With a vendor that does some of that type of stuff along with a lot of them. So it's just a really good networking event and opportunity to share information and best practices, all that good stuff. And then the only other thing I want to report out is this Thursday, we are working with local community organizations to do a city update. And a lot of discussion, I think, around water rates, but in meeting with some of the organizers earlier today, I think there's also a broader interest to just know what's going on as far as public safety, as regards to traffic, road issues, crosswalks. I think I'm missing an item or two, lighting. So all kind of safety related as far as interest and desire. So there'll be a good opportunity to just meet and hear concerns and bring back some information if there's any next steps. And that Thursday at the next. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent calendar. We can items approved in one motion unless an item is pulled for discussion. There will be no separate discussion or any matter unless a request is made. There will be the item will be removed. The consent calendar to be discussed and voted upon a separate motion. So at this time, we have a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'd like to call 11:26.
Once more, more clarity on it. Does anybody else have any?
Yeah, if there's no other items.
No, all right, okay. So do I have a motion to approve 11.1 through 11.5?
I was going to say,
I second.
I have a motion from Soria, a second from Dave, all in favor? Aye.
motion carries 5.
Okay, so. For 11.6, you want to give more clarity on that, Tyler?
Yeah. Thank you. We have, Joseph Sabina in the audience as well, our city services manager. This was a grant that was received by the city, several years ago. It's a Cal OES grant. They, provided these, to lots of cities and counties throughout the state in order to help us with resiliency, to weather any type of emergencies. The grant, that was given to the city, when we applied for it, we identified 7 different locations throughout the city, 4 generators in case of, blackouts or any type of, power outages. So the 7 identified sites were, 14, 15, the Toy Lift Station, Hickory Lift Station, City Hall, Public Safety Building, and wastewater treatment plant. As part of the process, we have requested an extension. A couple of months ago, we came to council, we had to update some of the signatories. So, you guys approved that. Most recently added myself as a signatory and a few other staff members, that hadn't previously been on, with staffing changes. And now this is the next step in the process to actually receive the generators and the funds. As part of the process, as, because of the state and federal funds, they are requiring us to go out to RFQ, to get these, design services actually to provide and install, generators that.
So just to be clear, nothing's coming out of, the city's pocket, it's all grant funded.
That's correct, yeah, this is all grant funded and all of these, services are part of it.
Thank you.
Are the grants especially for this?
Yes, they are specifically for the listed, generator.
For this, for the generator? That's what the grant is for.
Well, and
For the-
any of the services to actually install them, get them in place. So this would be covered, the actual engineering and design services as well. So anything that is included, so not just the purchasing of the generator, but actual installation, if there's any installation cost, that would also be included as part of the grant as well as the preparation. Of actually install.
So are you saying that the generators don't, provide that service?
I, don't know off the top of my head, oftentimes they do provide certain services, but as part of this, California and federal requirements in this grant, they do require us to go out to water. Or to have these type of services.
But we could use that grant money for something else, right?
No, these grants are specifically for it. So we would, and anything included
For the
with,
services.
for designing, installing,
The generator.
correct,
So
Yeah.
just for the generator.
correct.
So, any more questions?
We did get an extension on this grant, recently, we worked with Cal, so, they have been, fairly good to work with as far as making sure we use the fund.
Was there any questions on this side? No? So at this time, do we have? Okay, so do we have a motion for 11.6?
Public comment.
Oh, hi. You have any public comment for 11.6? You do? Oh, okay, I knew that. Do I have a, public comment for 11.6? Versus that. All right, public comment is closed. So now do I have a motion for 11.6? A motion for Blue Ken Flores, a second from Sonia, all in favor?
Motion carries 5-0.
Moving on to presentation items, 12.1. Acceptance of the city of Lindsay water capacity technical by neighbor, welcome neighbor.
So, since we were just talking about the generators before we start, when we were doing the water feasibility study and the water rate studies, that was one of the, deficiencies that we identified, having that, backup generator to turn on the wells, because we don't have that. Currently, we have one that can go around when we run at 2, 3 in the morning and connect it. We have it there, available, but it would be nice to have just a backup generator. So it's all part of the, capital improvement plan, and then going to see that grant award. Yeah, so to begin, this is in regards to the water capacity, memo. The city partnered with Provost and Pritchard back in 2023 to do the water feasibility study. So this is an extension to that feasibility study. We call it a technical memo because we see the need that we needed to, further investigate and evaluate the Lindsay's, long-term water supply, capacity. Because we know we're limited, so we need to know, how limited we are and what are the steps that we need to do, to move forward. So like I said, this speaks off of the feasibility study that we completed in 2023, but also is compliance with the urban water management plan that we did in 2024. And it uses the projections that are required by law, to make all the calculations that are required to do this type of report. So this is the agenda, that we have for tonight. We'll start with introductions. We have Aaron on the line from Provo Temperature. We'll go through the goal and the assumptions of the study, the findings of the study, and of course, the recommendation of Provo Temperature, which, then we will talk about what the real life applications of this, memo will be. There you go. So just to start with introductions, I'll start, my name is May Gomez, I'm the principal project manager for your, part of your pre-K team on the city engineering side. But the city contracted with Provost and Pritchard to, complete this, this study or this technical memo. And we have Aaron Tyson on the line. Aaron?
Hey there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, excellent.
And we can see.
I turned on my camera just for this.
Go ahead.
Neba, I just also wanted to let you know that I cannot see which slides you're on. So if you want to, as you change the slides, let me know which slide you're on. That would be excellent.
Okay, we'll do.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm Erin from Provo and Pritchard. I'm an assistant engineer here. I've been working on multiple studies, reports, basically state reports for the city of Lindsay for the last several years. And Neba and I prepared this presentation. Heather Bashian at PMP reviewed it for quality control. Back to you, Neba.
Thank you.
This one.
So beginning with the water projections and what we took into consideration. This memo, like I mentioned, it was prepared, it was approved by, it was, we decided to move forward for the end of, 2023, but as we know, there was a lot of changes that happened towards the end of 2023, 2024. So we were able to complete this memo back in, fall of 2024. For whatever reason, we hadn't been able to bring it back to council, but thankfully, Tyler does see the need for it because there's a lot of, this is a guiding document that we're using making decisions. So it's very important that council understands how we're using this memo moving forward to make determinations when talking about new entitlements or new developments in the city. So this memo, the goal of this technical memo is to assess whether the city has sufficient water capacity to support new development. And Erin is gonna go through different slides showing how the calculations were made, how the projections, are calculated and what assumptions were made. So we did a lot of assumptions because in reality, we cannot, predict the future, but we'll try our best to, as we go along, we will be modifying, this technical memo because there is a spreadsheet that came out of this report that we're able to modify as a live document, and we will show you later on. So just to amplify a little bit more, the goal of the study, is to evaluate the city, future water resources, assuming there will be 100% allocation. As we know, it all depends on the rain, but because the city has a class 1 contract, we're classified as, health and safety. So we just have to submit a request and the state, or the feds normally say, yes, you get your, but the city is the first one that gets the water allocated, and then they go into the allocation. And just to clarify, later on, we will be talking about 2 different terms, total supply versus firm supply. The firm supply criteria means that the largest water resource must be assumed offline. And this is when, the state wants us to do, resiliency, redundancy, what would happen if a worst case scenario would happen. So this is what this technical memo shows, and we will walk you through, that section. So what are some of the assumptions of this study? At the time that we were doing, we knew there was some, developments that wanted to come to, Lindsay. So we used those as assumptions. O'Hare Ranch being the first one, because they were the ones that were moving really fast at the time. They were proposing a total of 4 phases, total of 142 units, along with the mini storage. Then 1001 Fresno Street with 11 units, Westwood and Lithia, 7 units, Hidden Oaks, 50 units, and of course the travel center. There is, all of these are calculations based on what the developer presented at the time. So just to elaborate on the travel center, that represents 280 equivalent units. At the time when we were doing the calculations, it was just an assumption because we didn't know what they were going to be building. Are they gonna have a car wash? Are they gonna have, bathroom showers for the truck drivers? Restaurants, all of those things, that we didn't know whether or not they were gonna move forward. So that number, as we know today, they're not gonna have any of those things. They're building, so that number is gonna come down significantly. And like I said, we have that live document as an Excel sheet that goes in there, and we're able to modify those numbers once we know realistic numbers. I think also the other assumption of the travel center is that it was going to be, up and operational at, 2025. We're getting there. It's not completed yet, so, all of those things that we assume then, in reality is not happening, but we're able to make those modifications as the present time. The water treatment plant, we're assuming that it's operational at 100% capacity. We know that's sometimes that's not real, especially when there's a lot of rain. We have high turbidity because of the releases that they're doing up north. Then our water treatment plant is from 1970s. It cannot handle that high of turbidity. Sometimes, like 2 years ago, we were in April and we couldn't turn on the water treatment plant. And it was very, very stressful. But, we have to make assumptions that our water treatment plant is going to be operating from January through December, with the exceptions that every 2 years that now goes offline. And we will talk about those assumptions. Another assumption is well 11. It will be fully operational in fall of 2026. Thankfully, we just secured the grant. The city executed the contract, I want to say, August. So we're completing the 100% plans. So hopefully we'll be going out to bid by this December. So now we're pushing, I'm thinking now we're more looking into summer 2027 to be operational. But we will have to make those adjustments as we move along. Also, it assumes water safety measures that we adopted on the urban water management plan 2 days ago, 3 days ago. So we incorporated the urban water management plan projections into this technical meeting. And it also separates, peaking factors by season, whereas normally this technical memo assumes an average throughout the year. But we know that's not realistic, so then we, Provost and Rachel were able to separate that. And they did it by the season, because we know summer is when it's super high versus winter is very low. So we have those 3 high months where those peak factors reach the sky, but thankfully it evens out for the next.
And I'd just like to add on the last slide, another assumption that wasn't included, but something that we're working on is, with Bryant Water Authority to, other districts place sandbags in the canal on the every third year to, create a pool of water within the canal so that we're still able to, even though the canal is shut down for maintenance for the third year, we would still be able to have some water that we could utilize, and still have that. May not last us the entirety of the winter, but maybe more than currently receiving those typical every third. So, that also doesn't include that, but those are different things trying to make sure that we're maximizing that.
How much water do you get from like compared to what we get from California? For the brand water authority, the Bureau of Reclamation of the city of Lindsay, 2,500 acres. LSID does not take water to Lindsay. The original contract, the reason why Lindsay was able to obtain the Bureau of Reclamation, the federal contract, is because LSID had that extra 2,500, and they made it go back in the 50s, and they paid Lindsay the 2,500. So thanks to them, we got that allocation. So the water that Lindsay gets, you and are you saying you yes. Yeah, well, every day those pumps turn on in their meter, and we use an average of 100 acre-feet per month, 200 acre-feet per month in the summer months. Normally, we don't reach that 2,500 acre-feet, we're between the 1,800 and 1,900, and that's when we say we sell water, because we don't use our full contract, because the water treatment plant is down for a few months winter period this time. That's where we come back and we say we have extra water that we're using to sell, because if we don't use it, we use it. And we can only pay 10%, and we always roll over the 10%. Normally, it depends who the highest bidder is, but last year council adopted a resolution to give the rights to the city manager to negotiate that, and then the resolution you stipulated that you want to keep it within fiscal year to the same numbers first. So keep the water within our groundwater table, and if we can add, we have somebody that is giving us the right amount of money, then we can go outside. But that will be Tyler negotiating those terms.
So I think last year, more
Correct.
sold.
And they dumped it at the hardcore surface, so it's big. Welcome. So with that, I'll pass up the remainder of the assumptions to Aaron. Aaron, you're on slide number 7.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. Just to underscore some of the things that Nebo was mentioning in the previous slide, is that we really generally assume the lowest reasonable water use. So we weren't trying to say, oh, we need to, budget for the most extreme scenario. We already assumed that everybody is watering only certain days of the week. That the water treatment plant is functioning very well, which might not always be the case. So this image here, I wanted to convey that there's a lot of different controls that when you fly a plane, for example, or a helicopter, there's a lot of controls on that. And you can move the dials, but only certain dials are important for what you want to do. And so these are the dials that are important to us for the projection of water capacity. Do we have enough water? Does the city have enough water for these entitlements? So the supply and demand are really what we're looking at. And the water supply is informed by how many wells the city has. And demand is wells and surface water. And then demand is informed by the population, how much the city is expecting to grow, the future water use, what are the patterns that people are going to, how much water are people going to use generally, and then also seasonal factors. So like Neva was mentioning, regulations for the state require maximum day demand. So usually it's that the highest water use in the summer is what you use all year round. But because the city of Lindsay is a little unique, and not all cities have the Frank Kern Canal closing for a couple months every third winter, we felt we had justification to reduce that to seasonal factors. So that's what that looks like. Next slide. So the water supply, as Neva mentioned, the total water supply is different than the firm supply. And you're going to see both of these in some upcoming tables, actually on the next slide. So the total supply is all the wells available, all the water sources available. So the city has 2 wells currently and the water treatment plant. The firm supply is what if something happens, contamination, power outage, a drunk driver hits the well, such that you lose one of the wells, right? You lose one of your sources of supply. So I think the best way to kind of illustrate this is financial planning. We might not all have familiarity with water supply planning, but we all have familiarity with how to plan our finances. So the firm supply is your emergency fund, right? This is the bare minimum you need. Worst case scenario, can you make it work? The total supply is your average income. A normal year, do you have enough? Yeah. And engineers are your financial planners. So hopefully that makes this this analogy. Hopefully that analogy makes this a little clearer. Okay, next slide. Findings of the study. So with no entitlements, so there's a couple things that there's some animations here, Neva, that you can click through. So with no entitlements and with well 11 rehabilitated, the city's firm water supply is projected to be short of demand. Are you going to go up there and show different things, Neva?
Oh, hold on.
Okay.
Just click first. For the next slide. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, the total supply is highlighted.
Okay, great. So the total supply is how much water the city has. When I say we, I mean the city. How much water the city has, and then the reconciliation there is the supply minus the demand, right? So how much water do we have how much water do we have? How much water are we losing? Are we going to use? And then how much is left over? So that's the reconciliation column. So with the total supply, things look pretty okay as long as well 11 is constructed. And you want to click to the firm supply? Okay, we're good. Okay. The firm supply shows that before well 11, it's a pretty big negative number. Then there's a couple years where the city has enough. So in an emergency situation, right, if something happened to that extra well, the city's biggest well, the city's okay for a couple years, but then the population starts growing such that there's not quite enough water there. And then the red numbers every third year in the winter is when the canal goes offline. So if there is that small pool of water, that can be added to the spreadsheet that Neva's talking about, and these numbers can be adjusted. So that tool, the spreadsheet that we're going to get into in a little bit, is meant to empower the city to see, well, if I make this change, will we have enough water, right? Have different scenarios that the city gets to choose what they look like. So next slide.
If I
Yeah,
can
go.
add to that, So this slide shows you the assumptions that we talked about, but this is no entitlements. What if Lindsay doesn't allow any building as of 2024? That red, the last column, where it says reconciliation of firm supply, is taking out the biggest well, which is well 13. What would happen? So Lindsay is already in the red, even with well 11 coming back online. We do not have enough water source to supply to our residents if one of our wells, if well 13 goes offline because of the ground driver, the power outage, what happened? So this is the differences between the total supply and the firm supply. Lindsay is already in the situation of that we cannot meet the firm supply, which is the term, the calculations of the state asks the engineers to use to prepare for resiliency and redundancy. So I just want to make that clear. Regardless of what we talk, whether entitlements or non-entitlements, we are already on that situation of supply water. It's something that we have. Go ahead, Erin.
Thank you. Exactly to Neva's point, if with the entitlements approved, the city's water supply decreases more quickly. So we get to that negative number more quickly. There's not those 2 years of, oh, we kind of almost have enough water. With the firm supply, it's immediately in the red. I think the next is to bring up the spreadsheet tool. Neva, are you ready for that?
Yes. So
Okay.
the spreadsheet that we were talking about, this is one to show you an example, another example. Like the spreadsheet, I send it to Miranda. So you can see the different tabs: demand, population, supply, seasonal adjustment factors, annual supply and demand, and projection figures. So within the projection figures, Erin hit a middle square where we can add the numbers of entitlements. So Fair Ranch, 146 units were proposed. Yeah, they were supposed to be last year. They barely broke ground, they got. When are they gonna start building homes? Maybe in 6 months? When are they gonna occupy? Hopefully by summer 2026, once there's the end of 2026. So that home is not gonna be using water to January 2027 if they start selling homes next year. So those are the adjustments that Joseph, the building department, is gonna have to as building permits to start coming in, because that's when we know whether or not developments are going to happen. We have mission states that have been approved since 2007. They keep coming back every year, having meetings, wanting to revive the project, and then nothing happens. So we cannot save water for people that are not serious or they're not fully permits. So this is a really great tool that the city is going to have now. So we're able to adjust the numbers and we can see what the water supply is going to be. But I think the biggest take on this is we need an additional source of water. We need another well. We need probably 4 one to be. And that was part of the water rate studies. We included 2 different test sites and 2 different wells. That was included in the final projection. Of course, for the end, because it costs a lot of money. But eventually, the city will have enough money so we can start moving towards that goal. And then we can talk about something else that Kyler has doing on this. We can go back to the So, are you talking about the no mission? The first one. Yeah. The one north of the park? Yeah. No, it wasn't. So that wasn't really the years. No. So the wrong one then.
That's, in fact, correct me if I'm wrong, they've already filed closer, but not a conditional, so if they come, I mean, the council always has the ability to, answer whether if there's some type of emergency, but they're in the queue, they're because they were entitled
In 2007. So that is married to woman.
So a whole era also won't be regular at the same time,
First come, first served.
but will we have an example?
Yes, on the total supply, yes. Especially with 111 coming back online, we do have the analogy that Erin used. I like to think about it as my paycheck. I live paycheck by paycheck. So yes, we do have enough water to live paycheck by paycheck. But am I planning for my retirement? What if I get injured, disability? That's what I don't have. I what if. Correct.
So what would you do?
That's the biggest purpose. But we do run into the trouble where when it's surrounded by background. So when all of those agriculture people are coming on their well, then that well does lower their production. So we're hoping because well 11 is the only one in town, that's gonna become our biggest. Erin, you have the slide of findings of the study total supply with the graph chart.
Okay, great. This is just a visual representation of the tables that we saw earlier with regards to total supply. However, I did, so these are modified a little bit. There's two little asterisks in the bottom left corner of the figure. It doesn't account for carryover or selling water, and it does not include the entitlements. So with no entitlements, the total supply, average paycheck to paycheck, like Nipa was mentioning, looks all right. The orange line corresponds to the orange bars. So that's summer projected demand is the line. So that's how much we're going to be using. And the bars are supply, how much water is available. Similarly, the blue lines, the blue line across the screen is the projected winter demand. And the blue bars, the vertical bars, are what you're going to compare that to. So you just want to make sure that the blue line is that the blue bars are above the blue line. And that is the case for the total supply. So the average paycheck to paycheck, that's true. Next slide. If we look at the firm supply, if something happens, oh, we went somewhere else. Okay.
No, I regained control and I forgot.
No problem.
You're the
Okay. For the firm supply, if something happens to the largest well, then we're not in a great situation going forward. The supply versus the demand, right? So the demand is that horizontal line. The supply doesn't quite keep up with it. So recommendations, nearing the end here. The recommendations is to rehabilitate well 11, which you guys, the city's already working on. Recommend development of additional groundwater wells. And at this time, last October, when we wrote the report, no proposed 2024 entitlements should be approved until additional water resources are developed based on the firm supply, which is what the state of California requires in order to kind of plan your water supply. The state, like Neva was mentioning, wants the city to plan for worst case scenario. With that, Neva, did you want to mention anything else? And the next slide is just, do you have any questions? So go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like to add to the last recommendation. I'm removing my engineering cap and I'm putting on my day-to-day City of Lindsay former employee in how this has to be viewed. This has to be a guide. So I would recommend the council that they approve tonight that this report, acknowledge this report, but also just to use it as a guide, not to adopt more items. Because, there's a lot of assumptions that were made, but this is a live document. We would like to continue to use it as a guide to make decisions and then update it as we go, as building permits start coming in. And this is why in last year, and the year before, we made a determination that instead of not allowing development, we were going to allow development, but being transparent to the developer and let them know what our situation is. So therefore, issuing a Wolfsburg letter with conditions. just stipulating where our situation is, so they know what to pretend. Because we don't wanna put the city at risk where if we don't say anything, we get them a little better, and then like, when we stop them, they can lose a lot of money, so we can put the city in a situation of the loss, and we don't want that. So we wanna be as transparent as possible, and like I said, we have that rules of letter that, has conditions, tells them the truth. They don't have to see the truth, because I guess it's difficult for them to secure financing. But we're more than saying no, we're hoping that we're gonna remediate our situation by turning on well 11. We implemented water rates, we're working towards that goal of finding, trying to find a new source of water. We have new grants that are coming in that we're gonna make improvements, so little by little, we're working towards improving the water system, so hopefully, at the time they come ready to 50 permits, we're gonna say yes. So, with that, if there's something that you would like to add, Kyle?
Yeah, thank you, Neva and Aaron, for the presentation. I agree, staff recommends that council accept the report tonight. We evaluate every new application for services on a case-by-case basis. We'll continue to do that and see whether or not it makes sense, and making sure that we're practical, but also not scatterous. So, because there are a lot of assumptions, and because it's a dynamic situation, we're actively looking for new water sources, all the time. It's, even in the rates that were approved by this council last year, part of that was including, the rehabilitation of well 11. Well, since those rates were implemented and approved a year ago, we have since received a grant from the State Water Resource Control. So that $6+ million that we were planning on spending via the normal water rates is now going to be freed up as we accumulate that. And we weren't going to receive that all at once, but over a period of time, that will help us with some of the other needs of developing a new well and or other possibilities. So, and again, with grant writing, with lobbyists, with other sources, we're going to continue to be active. We're going to talk a lot about our fiscal situation right now and being active on new revenues. And I think this is very appropriate for also talking about our water situation, because we also need to be very active on the waterfront and growing our water. And those two things are really going to drive whether or not we're able to grow and improve the city, is if we have a stable water supply. So, I just to pivot slightly, one of the things that Neva alluded to is that there's a couple of different efforts that self-help is working on. One I'll just briefly mention that doesn't have a whole lot to do with water, other than I put in a request that there's an interest and desire by the state, and this happened even while I was on the board supervisor, so it's nothing new, but to consolidate, or look at options to consolidate Strathmore and Plainview with the city of Lindsay's wastewater treatment. We have capacity. We have been speaking with their consultants that are working on it, that something that would be a desire for us would be to have tertiary treated water. What that means is we would treat our water and use it in public spaces like a park, to be able to take that load off of our wells so that we can use those wells for our actual home. Whereas we can still keep the grass and all the green and utilize that type of thing. So that's one option that's ongoing studies that the state is looking to help out some of our nearby neighbors. The other one is the state's also pushing for a lot of consolidation of small water systems. Most recently, that's been going on with Tooleville and Exeter, where the state has been encouraging and supporting and providing funding for Exeter to extend their line to provide water services for Tooleville. These small communities, often it doesn't pencil out, it makes sense for them to pay for their own system. But with a smaller investment connecting to a nearby larger system doesn't make sense. It doesn't necessarily make sense for extra unless there's certain complications. So in that same way that the state has done that, they're looking at how does Ponyville help? Recognizing that similar situations nearby, and so how would it make sense for the city of Lindsay to take over and provide water service? Some of the feedback that we provided is that we can't, as was noted tonight, we can't utilize our surface water treatment plant to 100% capacity year in and year out. Because of turbidity issues, because it's, from the 70s, we don't have any room for additional usage, and it's landlocked, right? So it's right down the street here on Honolulu, just apartments. We've got apartments on one side, we've got homes on the other two sides, and it's, if you didn't know it, you wouldn't realize that's where a vast majority of Lindsay's water is coming through on a 2-acre piece of lot, 1.5-acre piece of lot. It's a small lot. And so, building a new facility that was larger, that could handle a regional capacity, not only all our water sources, provide us with room for growth, as well as, the state providing additional water, not only for Ponyville, but to give us some margin as well. So that's kind of what we're talking about negotiating. I wanted to bring that up because self-help in the state is interested to see if there's any interest by the council. So if there's any direction that you want to provide staff with tonight, that would be helpful. If it seems like council's open to it, assuming that it doesn't hurt any city residents, because that's our first and primary focus is for folks that live in the city of Lincoln. And if it makes sense where we can have a good negotiation and get some other benefits for the city outside of just helping out Ponyville, then we will work with staff to bring back an item most likely next month that would formalize, at least a further exploration. It's still a long way before anything happens, but that this is something that self-help and others have indicated we'd like to hear how council. I'm hearing that we'll bring that back at the November meeting. We'll have. I think I was talking about how often do 5 years ago or overall.
So this is a live document, so it's a spreadsheet that we're able to update on a day-to-day basis as the government comes in. Like I heard from Joseph today, that he's got new application of a potential subdivision on Tulare Road. So we're able to plug in the numbers to see what if O'Hara were to take off, mission notes, and what would that be? So we're gonna be using it as, applications come in, as they start pulling up building permits. Once the travel center finalizes, we're able to be having just 280 units. There's no way that they're using 280 homes worth of water. So that number is going to come down significantly. It's going to open up the door for further development. So we're going to be working on a weekly basis. But a regular document, like the water facility study, the water rates, by law, you're supposed to update them 35 as a minimum.
So we can add them. Well,
one of the variables on 111 is we're making assumption of how much water we're going to get out. But in reality, we don't know how much the groundwater is going to behave. So as it comes back alive and we're able to operate it, then that number is going to be adjusted. So those adjustments are going to be made. You will just add it.
Well, we've even taken steps like with the olive hole. There's a well on site that has some contaminants there, so we're not utilizing it for domestic usage, but we are planning on using it. I know we have a generator hooked up right now, for irrigation of that plant. So again, we're looking at trying to maximize other resources so that we can save the actual potable water for our residents.
Take public comment. I'm gonna take public comment for 12.1. Public comment for 12.1. Do I have a motion to approve 12.1, Jared? Do I have public? Not tonight. Do I have a motion for 12.1?
So is this the one that we moved to approve?
Just
Or for the
yeah.
everybody?
No entitlement. she said.
With entitlements,
With entitlement?
yeah, with the conditional no service.
Yeah, so I'd recommend we just accept it, and the current practice is that we will evaluate.
There you go, perfect.
On the record. Alright, so a motion? A motion to approve. A motion to Gloria, second by me, all in favor? Aye.
Motion passes by.
We'll move on to action item 13.1, the agreement of the city of Lindsay to join the Fire Water Authority, acting on recommendation, submitted by Tyler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. So this goes along very well with the last, item, talking about, the need for additional water supplies. The city has been, the recipient of Bryant Water Authority, Class 1 and Zero Reclamation Class 1 water, since the inception of the canal, in the mid-50s. However, as far as I'm aware, none of these did not actually serve on, in a membership capacity, but board capacity. What's presented today is that, oftentimes there are major decisions that Bryant Water Authority makes on behalf of the entire system, and that impacts Lindsay. Right now, we don't have a say, in a formal capacity. We have the ability to make contact with staff, to leverage other, board members, but the decisions on rates, what the cost of our water is, what we get off the canal, that's decided by Bryant Water. You know, what type of construction projects that will impact and see whether or not we have additional supplies, because, just south of us, there was a need to build a new peripheral canal, because there weren't able to get the allocation to Southern District because of subsidence along the canal. That's also a similar issue here, although not as extreme of an issue in the Lindsay Strathmore extra area. But there have been talks about raising the canal banks here locally, so just outside of town, to ensure that we are, moving the appropriate amount of water as it's typically needed. I think there's also lots of discussions about new water sources, on occasion. So being at the table so that, we're not forgotten about, when the other irrigation districts that do serve on it, you know, have the ability to snatch it up or take it for their own. Some of that is regular supply, but more often than not, it's in wet years, it's flooding water, it's water associated with the Southern River settlement. So there's different things along those lines. So I think that, I recognize there is a cost to it. I provided a separate handout that shows this is an estimate based on a percent of the overall budget. So the dollar amount for the city of Lindsay, is $60,200, annually is what's listed. That's the second lowest, number, among all the members. Pixley Irrigation District, which doesn't receive any water at all, not class 1 or class 2, but they are a member. Is the only one that has a lower dollar, and that's, less than $3,000. annually. Whereas on the highest amount, Harbin Houston, theirs is almost $250,000 annually. So again, we get the same voice and the same vote that the large districts do in this circumstance, but paying a fraction of the cost as far as what the others do. So I recognize that things are tight. We do have it in the budget and water rates, so this will not impact any other general fund departments such as public safety or parks or recreation. This will come directly out of water rates, and I do think that this is another strong investment in the same way that we are investing in grant writing and lobbying to help us get more water and to make sure that what we do have is affordable and that we're at the seat of the table when large decisions take place.
How many is there right now on the board?
Without Lindsay, there are 22 districts. So we'd be the 23rd. Hills Valley is an associate member, so they're technically not a voting member, but they can go listen to all discussions.
So do you know how they can totally, are they here for it?
It's primarily irrigation district, so I think that's also a large benefit. The only other city that's a member is Fresno, which is obviously not small. The only other city that's eligible to even be on is Orange Grove. And Orange Grove has not participated. Haven't had those discussions with Orange Grove to know what the reasoning was. I assume it's budgetary reasons. So it's a limited opportunity because most cities are completely reliant on it. So they don't actually have access to. So Visalia doesn't, Water, Exeter doesn't, Woodlake doesn't, Porterville, you just go down the list. And Lindsay, Orange Grove, and Fresno are the only 3 cities. There are other towns unincorporated, but actual cities. So Strathmore, I believe, that's the only one that comes. There may be some
So do you think, why would you think there are other board members that actually rule in our favor?
I think, one, their Bryant Water Authority is based in Lindsay, so their main office, they were founded and started in Lindsay. They're right across the street from NDS on Harvard. So this is their headquarters. I think that we have a very unique voice in the Hispanic community, a rural community. Realistically, I think that we help them with some political issues. When they want to talk with members of Congress and with folks in the state legislature, we look a little bit different than the farmers that typically go into. We have a different voice and different perspective because our residents aren't farmers necessarily. There may be some, but a vast majority are not farmers. And even though they're connected to agriculture, so I think they really want that diversity, and I think they know that they will benefit by having voice and a fresh perspective. And I think that's why they're going to be going. I mean, in the same way that Mabel mentioned earlier, LSID which are both of our neighboring districts, LSID on the east and Linmore on the west. Linmore is paying slightly more, but they're paying annually just over $100,000 in their membership, where LSID's $84,000. So I think that it benefits them. LSID has been a partner in the past as far as helping to work with providing that supply to us directly, but we didn't have to go to them decades ago. But it's actually our supply. We have a Bureau of Reclamation contract.
It's a tough decision, I think, for me personally, it's because, like you said, we are going to be doing water. The rates will increase in sources. I don't know about the protection on that. I don't know.
Is there any questions?
I think it's a good idea. I'm part of the peaceful, sometimes we don't realize that. Meetings, attending these meetings and report. Kind of set a guidance for the presenting, for the staff, for the teams, for that nature, but also, it comes down to, you have a voice that. Apparently we don't. In a new world, so, that was to really collaborate with projects, that's what we need, collaboration. Establish partners that have cloud, because they have cloud throughout the state, they're involved. And it allows us to build a coalition and go and try to get some type of grant. We're working together, and not just kind of do it. So it's important that we establish collaborations. Invest, right? It's an investment in myself. I'm not bringing in dividends right away, but 10 years down the road, we might be able to something about it.
I know it seems like a lot, I think, it is a lot, but, man, sometimes we gotta step out and do this. Cause this has been stuck for a very long time, you know? I mean, who knows, if you try it out, it's working, you can always pull out, And,
Yeah, it is by year, so at any time, in actuality, I think the call for funds that's listed out in this, spreadsheet is, quarterly. So, I mean, theoretically, we wouldn't, at any given time, if things weren't working out, we don't have to wait for the meeting.
I think we explained the benefits that we as a city, because that's one of the things that I have questioned about, or benefits as a business, and where we get a, but, I think we can get a lot out of it if we do it right, so. I also have the same thought of the optics of it is so on this, but can you help us getting in any way and more water, and so that, we can help our people. And we all sit on other boards and get those other fees and stuff like that, hoping that we bring funds to fees, so to bring more water, to bring more resources, to be beneficial.
And this is within our budget.
It is within our budget. We did, I was hopeful, and so we did allocate that. If this isn't approved, then we would look to allocate those funds for some other project. But it is as of right now, it's in the proposed draft.
Well, you put a well in the now.
We just won't tell it. Hole in the bottom.
Any more questions?
I think it's, with the management that, we're really stuck. And if you don't try to look at this, you're not gonna. So in order to make some type of change, whether that's good or bad, we have to do it. And then again, it doesn't work, and,
Maybe it does. Risk is scary.
they are.
But I hate to lose. Yeah. Or it'll be on the winner, but. All right, we have a motion for a 13.1.
I would, just say that if there is a council desire to move forward with, membership with Bryant Water Authority to also appoint, I'd recommend the city manager as a board member, just based on, time commitment and when the board meets, monthly on Thursday mornings, and typically last in the afternoon. There's also other committees and,
So. Right. That was on my agenda. Let's see, public comment 13.1. No public comment? Public comment is closed. Do I have a motion to approve 13.1 and appoint Kylan Show Care to meeting?
With the consideration of, with the consideration, we gotta make sure that it's possible and make sure that. It doesn't work, make sure that. Well,
Do I have a second? Okay, so a motion for Councilman Gloria and Sanchez, the second of Sanchez, all in favor? Aye. Okay.
Motion passes 4-0-1 with, Councilmember Flores. Just a note on that, I will work with Brian's staff so maybe in a few months to provide a presentation, come to this, talk about some of the benefits and share that with, council.
Yeah. You didn't get it so well in your, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to 13.2, the rule of Lindsay Christian Federation for 2025. This is written by Armando de Silva.
So tonight I'm presenting on decoration for this year's holiday Christmas decor at City Hall in downtown. So, I'm gonna start with last year's budget. Last year I presented, I believe in May, regarding lighting. We did have a budget of 50,000, about 35. And then our expenditure was actually 27,320 and 39 cents. We did actually go low budget, so that was good. First time fine. So I'm gonna go over the breakdown, cost for each facility, decor, that way you guys can understand a little more how much things are very expensive. So City Hall alone, with the lighting on the rear of the facility, city service building, the Christmas tree with the decorations, garland, tree on the bell, 60-inch, full-on city hall tower, the 2D10 panes for those, and then the little, giant lit photo op frame that's usually by the little wood stuff, whatever you want to call it. That was about 12,500. Public safety, about $3,526. Lighting throughout the facility with the wreaths on the front of the facility. And then we have Mirage on the roof. So for the four corners, and then 38 trees, about a little over $11,000 with the lights. They do light up downtown, but they are very expensive. Most of it is labor. It does take them about almost a week to put them up. They have to wrap every single branch on every single tree, and then extension cord with a wire, and then a timer, and then geometry power. So that does take a while. And then maintenance costs, so they'll come out once, sometimes twice, check on everything that's moved. And then, like I said, 27, then $20.39 last year. I went over this last year, how much would it cost? Purchase 18-foot Christmas tree. Last year I did receive 4 quotes. Last year I attended the Parks and Recreation Society conference, and received, received 4 quotes. I reached out to 4 different vendors at the conference, and they did it all. So for 8-foot tree, including LED lights, copper ornaments, shipping tax, the lowest was 19,000. The highest was 26, and that's only for street lighting. Council decided to just rent. Their street is a lot cheaper, just to rent and purchase. So that's what we did.
And the history alone is around $4,200. So we can. So looking into the future, the next fiscal year, we did purchase a tree with we paid 25,000, and we would order this tree July 2026. It does take a while to get what you want. You might have something in stock, but it might not be what you want, other than the ornaments, the lights, all that good stuff. So they recommended about July to order your items. That way, it's coming by October. Some of the stuff it's shipped from either Europe or Japan or China. So yeah, China. So we did the. So we did. That's right. Branded decorations, about 12,000. But we did purchase it about 37,000 with a one-time cost of $25,000. That's one-time cost, and 25,000 is on the higher end. So that's an option for not this year, but next fiscal year. And then this year, Christmas tree rental about 5,000, decoration 12,000. So we are asking if we did eliminate the tree lights in downtown, looking at $17,000. But if you want to rent those lights again, I put max $27,329. That's an option. So with everything except for the lights in downtown, about $16,140.84. Like I said, it does not include the lights in downtown, so you're saving about $11,000. With no
No
lights
lights in the corner right
trees.
here.
Yeah, no lights on the corner or downtown. Just at City Hall, public safety, city services, and the front lawn. And that would be it for the 16,000. If you want to do the lights downtown, you're looking at $27,329. And
How
that's
much
our
was
first
rate
match.
of the potatoes?
We made a
We
little,
didn't pay $10,000.
we were close, we had about $3,100. So we have received about $750 in donation or sponsor, so about $4,000 in sponsorship donations for the lights, so we're almost there.
Ask right. They want to put.
Yeah, they
We're gonna get tired. No, but we'll put Christmas lights around a fire. I don't sound like that here. That's what I want.
So I'll just go ahead and state that staff's recommendation is, we like it, we find a lot of value, we recognize it is expensive. And so if there's a desire from council to commit a lower dollar amount, we do have this also budgeted. But if there is a desire to do a lower amount for this year, then I'm committed to finding private donations to fill in the gap for what that is. And so two of the businesses you mentioned are two of them. I think our Valor and Light Pack. I think also some of, our relationship that we've been building with PBS. I think they've shown a willingness to be a partner with the city. I don't think they have historically been very active with Lindsay, but they are our largest private employer in town. They employ over 350 full-time employees and peak season 400. Recently, when I was visiting relatives in Texas, there were NPS irrigation equipment at one of the sites. They're all over. They do a lot of stuff. So, I mean, those are just three examples. I think there's others, some of the city's vendors that we work with regularly that get a lot of money from us. Also, would also be open to helping to provide something. So I think we've got some good. They can help us with that. So we're looking for direction as far as what that might look like. I would assume that we like the Christmas lights in general. It's just a matter of how much council is willing to, or are comfortable spending out of our own city funds. For this year, we're talking about this in like less than 2 months.
Do we own any Christmas decorations?
We do, we have a couple of items. I think about 3 years ago, they purchased a bunch from Costco. But the problem is, they still kind of work, yeah. So, yeah, so, another issue is storage. So, finding storage to put everything at.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask about, we purchased the 18th of Christmas, tree, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's a hard balance there.
Fragile.
Marshall knows they used to be.
Yeah.
It'll be a Halloween tree.
Going back to the Christmas light, it looks so beautiful. I love to see the families out here taking pictures, you know. But I like the downtown too.
Okay.
But I'm wondering if we can get if we can get our community people that own the stores like decorated off, so you know, we could like, I don't know.
That was a discussion last year with the business owners, if they could decorate their own tree with brand. So that could be another discussion I can have with the business owners.
I'd also say we are working, staff is beginning some ideas about downtown improvements, revitalization. I've heard loud and clear from this council and from others that need and desire. So I think there are a couple of different options that we'll be exploring in this upcoming, fiscal year to implement. And if those do get implemented, then that will help cover the costs of those and other things that won't be on the city's budget. So we may still have to pay for stuff on our property, but for everything else downtown, wouldn't necessarily be part. So,
I just like it, it looks pretty, and it looks really, it's really.
Yeah.
And if we could get even the decorate the window or do something, like to bring some kind
we
of.
can improve.
All the way down to the orange tree.
Make the orange decorations. Street out. Like we were next to her and they have like, competition going on, businesses of, what is it?
The scarecrows.
Scarecrow, yeah. So it's just like, we gotta get them to do stuff.
I mean, I like the idea and the budget's gonna give it spin, not $50,000. You never hear that from the community. That's
Yeah, so last year it was 50, went down to 30, guys approved 35, back 27.
Nice. Yeah, heard that from the local.
So we got to move it up.
4,000
We're down to 20 out of that total.
Yeah.
to do the whole downtown. But you know what, like what I don't like is that you pay 130 for these guys to come on here and look at the lights, then some of them aren't working, they work for like a week or I would be sending it to the whole manager.
We have, our good buddy John, Phil, he likes to unplug, our lights to save energy. It's not, yeah, so, yeah.
Just not decorate in front of them, what we do.
It looks good.
Just. The lights right there. Yeah.
So, all right, so you, at this time, do I get a public comment for 2.2? No.
You do have.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought we were.
Sorry, Mike. No, I just wanted to say, we started with banners a few years ago, and where we come from, that's this, the phenomenal. Like we talk about, you guys hear it said, we have boots on the ground. Every time they have their little parade and stuff going on, we get a lot of positive feedback from a lot of the community, whether they're longtime residents or even we get people from out of town. Conversations that just matter, come across them. And this is awesome. When we live in community. Yeah, they have a big parade and stuff, but not like this where you come, and you can really feel the community coming together. And all the stuff that they provide out front with no cost to everything. Not to mention the toys, the Santa that shows up, all of those things collectively leave a really good impression of our city. They're really good. So I guess my only comment would be if we could just keep it going. And it doesn't have to be very extravagant, but the way it makes the public come together, the group of people, the community, all the different service clubs, everybody that starts pitching in, I mean, safety did a phenomenal job. They've been doing it, irregardless of what other people say, 30 years, it's been going on for a long time. A lot of years. So I just say, try to keep this going as best we can, what we got. I mean, you're not gonna make everybody happy, but how can you have something positive or have something nice without spinning? You just can't.
Agree.
And,
Thank you, thank you.
We can go with. Around the country, I just love it. I
Okay.
love.
You can eliminate any items, so like the giant photo op, it's 4,000, you can eliminate that.
But people love.
I know that's a photo op.
Yes.
Working, you know, it's a big, that's very good. That's like
Yeah.
20,000.
No,
No,
no. I'm like. How many more fundraisers are you doing? Yeah.
So we had, Tyler and I were, kind of having a conversation earlier. Tyler, right? Is it Tyler? Tyler. So we did have a conversation that we could technically use all our potato funds that we're receiving each month, and put it towards Christmas decor. That's an option. You know, we did receive a little over 3,000. Last week, the month prior, we had almost 900. So if we average around $900, that's $9,000 a month plus the 31. That's going to cover the streetlights. So that's an option.
And like I said, even if you wanna move forward with it, we'll still also, go around, this is all city to help solicit, you know, we can create some nice banner, something, to put all the sponsors, you know, somewhere on the lawn that show, you know, that they're helping to sponsor Christmas lights, decorations, you know, in and around city, so, you know, this would truly be a partnership, in my mind, yeah. And then moving forward, we'll look at, you know, more sustainable options, people going and directly even look.
library.
If the library did reach out, they wanted their facility, so that might lose some money right there.
Yeah.
Why you get one,
We only do one portion of their building, so they're one of the other side on Meatloaf.
Oh, yeah.
So another option is we eliminate those lights, there's really nothing there, and that also gives the money too on that side, of the library, and just have them pay for what they want. I don't think there's power. No
Never
power.
mind.
welcome, I'm here.
Yeah. So yeah, tonight we're recommending the Sabo, money, it's a $60,000 one. Or you can just keep it the same as last year for $329.
I'm recommending keep it the same, but again, even if you do a lesser dollar amount, then allow staff to keep that same scope and then just give direction to find the money else.
Like I said, we still have 6 more baked potatoes though, or 7 actually. And all those funds can go towards Chris Pikes, and that's another 2,000 plus the 3,000 that we already received, so that's an option. That's what we want. Correct.
Okay, so let's move, you guys have a motion for 13.2? I move we keep it as it's been with 27,000 and use it to find some private donations and
We
light
just,
up their names.
we just sent out letters, so we've been receiving check, we got one from Kiwanis, we got one from the Imperial, ambulance, that's the Imperial, they gave us 500, Quantum gives 250, UK goes 250, we're actually over 4,000 at the moment. So we're getting there. Because I sent them, something, so I'll reach out to them once again.
We should all go together. So I move that we, okay, so I have a motion made. I have a second for Toya. All in favor? Aye.
So 27.
There's no.
Motion carries.
One percent left on the next one we're having.
Well, and that's a good point, so if we do wanna purchase, we'll have to come back to council probably during the budget time next year, May, June, so that if we do wanna purchase, we board at the time, that's part of it.
And I'll be going to conference in bars, and I'll be the park rec. And they have over 250 exhibitors, and there's about 5 of them that only do quality lights, and that's where I got this quote from. So, I'll speak to them again and see if we can discount, right down the spot rather than mail them.
Yes.
So I'll be working on that.
Really deal, Mark. All right, here comes the real deal. Here's 25, something serious.
Very tall. Sit here, sir.
Mayor,
Here we go.
all right, 13.3, so we have, Soledad Reese Nunez, our finance director with the first budget. I'm gonna say a few words before she gets into it. A few, because I know we're later in the evening, but I just want to highlight some of, the budget is really the implementation and the action of our goals and vision of the city. So we have goals and ideas and where we want to go. Now, this is putting it into place. Where we spend our dollars, that's our action, saying that we actually prioritize these things and decide. I'd encourage you guys to read my wonderful message. That was message back then. That was in the budget. I appreciate it. But I want to highlight just the goals portion of that as far as what we've talked about. In this fiscal year, we've emphasized this, these aren't anything new, but increased annual revenue. So how we're doing that, securing grants through the lobbyist grant writing, exploration of sales, strategic assets, and strategic partnerships to operate traditional city services, actively court market race residential developers and commercial developers to build in the inland. That was something that we talked about. There's a lot of affordable housing market. We need larger homes, bigger lots. Exploration of annexation of county islands and land within sphere of influence and expansion of city limits sphere. Enhance relationships with Lindsay Unified and Lindsay Hospital District. So that is, Vanna, you're doing great. Revenue side. On the cost side, it's reduce annual costs. So implement energy savings and generation projects, implement technology upgrades to minimize need for additional staffing and more effectively utilize existing staffing. I guess those were meeting regulatory demands, capital backlog. Begin our general plan update, initiate and complete backlog of studies per the capital improvement plan. Begin investing in deferred maintenance of facilities citywide. Investigating an animal control facility. Our fourth, enhancing Lindsay service appeal, initiate public art initiative, institute downtown development standards, create and implement city interest elements along highway corridor, activate the code enforcement. And lastly, build and strengthen Team Lindsay. This is all about our employees. Continue to evaluate employee compensation and maintain competitive total compensation as related to peer regional cities. Institute upskill training program and encourage additional professional development for employees. So that's kind of where we're going on. And we're going to give you a high level view of the budget right now. Soledad is myself, but mainly her, is more than willing, able to go to dive deeply into the budget and whatever questions you may have. He has created a budget summary, that lists out things in a, in a nice, easier, transparent way than going in the larger, we also have the larger. So whatever you guys wanna do, we'll start with this, and then if you have any feedback or wanna go for more, then we're happy to do that. So with that, here's what we've got up. Go to the next. So first, we want to touch on SQM settlement fund because that's such a large thing. We're tag team, so she's got the middle section. And she wanted to do the fund lines, and I get the nod as fund lines. Yeah, I am on my concept. That's why I said in the corner. SQM settlement fund. So these were the funds that received out of settlement. This is what we're proposing to utilize it. In May, council took action to release the ability to do other things. We haven't touched the payment, or we haven't touched the funds as per council's direction. But this outlines a plan for where we're going. So the primary focus is to pay down debt. So those that are listed on there are what we still owe. For those particular, that clears up a good portion of the debt that's on the books. We still have debt for the wellness center that we owe proceeds for that, for the construction of that. We still have funds for our intra-fund transfer to our water and sewer fund that's still in general funds. So those are the two main ones outside of this listed. But that covers almost $2 million of the SBA fund. We also took action to tackle our pension obligation and our OPEB funding. This was something that we initiated the process to partner with BARS over the summer. This will help us in particular with compliance with our audits. So auditors said that this is a finding that we do something. So putting $1 million not only does it help us with our findings, but it also helps us with our backlog. I mean, I think it's $10 million for these two funds. So it is a lot of money that we are like still so far away that it is. It's yeah. I'm glad someone did that because I thought I was going to cry. So I think. Yeah, and the beauty of the investment funds is that we set it away and it can grow and help us with our annual costs as they continue to grow, because CalPERS is getting cheaper. And then lastly, we're setting aside specifically $1 million for our general fund reserve, and that we're really planning on keeping that as a lockbox, so we're not going to be touching that unless there's a true emergency. And the other funds, as you'll see later on, there's a lot of capital improvement plans and other one-time needs for the city, but we're not dedicating that all tonight. We will evaluate as the year goes through and kind of keep a bit more of a cushion so that we're ensuring that that we can truly afford it and reprioritize as the year goes on. So. And in part, there's water projects, there's lots of different projects. So.
Can you just explain the
yeah. Yeah. So we evaluated our general fund is roughly $9 million, give or take. And so that $1 million reserve puts us close to 12% of our general fund. So that's in line with standard practices for most cities. $1 million is also kind of nice to say we've got $1 million in reserve for, just as we talked about, we haven't had that in the recent past, but as was noted by the earlier water presentation, if a drunk driver, if we have an issue where there's a power outage or whatever, any of those type of what-if situation, we have some breathing room to be able to provide it. Realistically, there's been legal actions and other things, so we have some ability where we wouldn't have to scramble and do things. I mean, it's not an unlimited, But it does give us just that little bit of breathing room where it's still prudent. And then the rest of the funds, I mean, we'll be actively looking for good, projects to invest back into our community. Obviously with your input and with that, Jose, I believe, Don?
Yep, it's my turn. So thank you very much. It's been fun putting together the budget for 25-26.
No one
That's, the best part of it is that every fund right now, we are projecting to be positive. We won't be in the negative. Yay, it was a lot of work by every department director. We looked through all the revenues and expenditures, and we had to make a lot of cuts at the department level in order to make sure that we had a balanced budget. That was our goal going into it when I got hired, and so we were able to do that. The next thing so this slide is just an overview of what the budget as a whole kind of looks like. So the next bullet point says that we have financial software that we're going to be purchasing. This project started last fiscal year. It kind of slowed down and stopped for a while. We have started again. There's going to be quite a bit of cost with the financial software because a lot of the work that was done has to be done again. So we did include that in the budget. And so when you look at the finance budget, you're going to see like huge numbers. That's one of the reasons is a lot of the money that was paid in fiscal year 25, we're going to have to pay it again in fiscal year 26 because we have to do it again and they won't do it for free. So that's going to be costly, but it's going to help us ultimately with all of our finances, citywide with utility billing and permits. And so there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We should go live by July 1st of 26 of 26. I've worked in multiple years, sorry. And so we should be going live July 1st of 26. One of the other things that the budget also has is that we are catching up on our audits. We have the new auditors price paid. So we'll be doing audits 24 and 25. So all of that expenditure is also in the finance department budget, which is really high budget now because of the way we're doing this. So before, the budget used to do a direct allocation. So like a charge for me, instead of all being in the finance department, it used to be a percentage into water, a percentage into sewer, a percentage somewhere else. So you never really knew what's the cost of an individual or a department in the general fund because it was allocated everywhere. This budget is now having overhead. And so now when you go, you can see like this is the cost of the staff in the finance department. This is the cost of the staff in the city manager's department. You can actually see those costs, whether it's just the salary, the benefits, the unfunded liability costs, the PERS cost, it's all allocated by law. And so everyone is allocated in their department and the enterprise funds are taking in overhead in order to help with the cost of the department. So the overhead is taken into account in this current budget. We also have added training for employees. I know a couple of years back it was cut back quite a bit and it hasn't really gone back to normal levels. So training is pretty important for all of our staff members and we did add it. So you are going to be seeing when you look through the budget and you look at that line, it's going to be quite higher because the employees haven't been attending trainings. And now we're going to be promoting them. Additionally, one of the other things that we cleaned up in this budget is some of the items that are not a capital expense were being coded to a line which was a capital expenditure line. So when it comes to the audit, you're trying to move items that are just regular maintenance into a maintenance account and keeping expenses into a capital expense. And so we're trying to clean it up and say, no, if it is not a true capital expense, it does not go in a capital line. So as we go through the budget, there's going to be some items that the maintenance and repair lines are really, really high, but it's because that expense, even though it's $200,000, it's really a maintenance, not a capital expense. So those are some of the reasons why you're gonna see some of the numbers are going to be like pretty high. A couple of highlights on the city manager's department. His budget, does include a lobbyist, it does include a grant writer. We did include some funds for the employee appreciation. And then we also combined the city clerk HR budget and the city manager's budget because it's one department, not two. So just to have some consistency across the board, we went ahead and combined those two budgets. Public safety, their budget accounted for staff that's going to be needed within the next 3 to 6 months and by the end of the fiscal year. And so we did account for a new chief of police, 2 additional sergeants, and 3 officers. And their start date is not all at the same time. So some of them are 10-1, some of them are 1-1, some of them are later. So just, we accounted the cost of the staff depending on when we are going to try to do the month. We also have added some expenditures to upgrade equipment. We're going to be adding some vehicles, and then we're going to be updating the living quarters for the fire area, fire personnel.
Chief, you get this 2 vehicles, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
The one that was wrecked.
We call reimbursement for that vehicle. Yeah.
You actually,
That's right. Done.
And so also on, we do still have some Cortado, funding, so we'll be using that to upgrade the living quarters for fire personnel. So they're in a very small space. There's some issues with the sewage line, smells really bad. There's some, it still functions, but it's not pleasant. There's issue with appliances that they need some upgrades. So there's some of those types of funding that are also.
For city services, we have also done a reorganization of that department. That department is going to be sharing their park staff. It's actually not sharing, moving over to our wellness area or director. And we did account also for new staff, like the public works director, permit tech, and a maintenance worker. We added some projects or some documents that need to be updated because we just haven't had some of these documents updated in the last 20 years. And so we did include the cost of those documents to be done through this budget cycle.
And I just say that, those plans are really, important from a state and federal standpoint in order to get more funds. So again, that's just another point where investing in things that we think will help us get more money back. So there's gonna be some costs up front, but then the idea is we'll get more in return. Right, absolutely. I just note too on this in particular, well, I'll bring it. It's on.
Our wellness center, it's kind of set up as its own department, but now it's going to be the parks and recreation instead of the wellness center. They'll still have their own budget in the budget book. The wellness center will, and then the parks will also have their own budget. But as a department, it's going to be parks and recreation. And so the parks personnel are now going to be under our director of parks and recreation. We're going to be adding the youth sports. We had a presentation a couple of meetings ago in collaboration with the school district. We're also hiring personnel in order to be able to have the youth sports. And so all these costs are all accounted for in the budget. And so when you see the salary costs, it's because we have additional staffing costs. There is a revenue line, which we did account for the revenue from the school district. And we're waiting on final numbers from them, but we did plug in a placeholder to get us started with. So hopefully it's better than what we did.
So one thing to note on that is that as part of the approval of this budget, staff is recommending a formal reorganization to create a park and rec department, and so, as part of that, we'll have to come back, there'll probably be some title changes and, along with what that all includes. But I think that it makes more sense for us to have the two Parks and Recreation Department have a little bit more control. I think one of the benefits is, our maintenance staff, I think, do a phenomenal job. But oftentimes they, not only do they deal with parks currently, they deal with, water occasionally, they deal with sewer occasionally, streets, building maintenance. And so this kind of helps to, provide some separation where folks can be more experts. They kind of already do some distinct, job duties, but this will really emphasize and have more emphasis on the park side, and then the other maintenance folks that still are in city services will have more of a focus on the water, sewer, building maintenance, streets. We're still one team, we're still all part of the family, so that's not gonna mean that there won't still be helping crossover. I think that will happen on a very regular basis as it arrives. Like today would be an example. We had some flooding issues in and around town with all the rain. I can easily see that they're not mowing the lawns in the rain, but let's help out, some of the other city services crew to make sure that we're addressing some of the flooding in town. This would be a perfect example of partnership and making sure we're.
How can I be hired? So long. Then like only.
Which, for director, of which.
Well, for us. I mean.
I see Joseph and Marshall really perking up. They like, we're,
No, I'm serious.
so the directors in background hired two, I think we've made offers to two other maintenance workers within the last 2 weeks or so. There's been some background, checks and just verifying things along those lines. And we can bring in a couple more. I think that's we just passed that time. We did also, bring on someone who was a temporary person to make a full time. And we're going to be working on creating one of the admin assistants to a permanent tech position. So those are all in the works and planning. Miranda's been working diligently with city services staff. So frankly, I think we've actually been doing things pretty quickly. We also we promoted some employees as well. There's some employees in city services that have received some certifications within the last several months. We've been getting them their increased pay because of that. So we're working hard to get that fully staffed. All within a budget.
You did. The finance department, we have, our budget is quite large. We have the cost of the new financial software, which is all in the finance department instead of split through all these other, budgets the way it was in fiscal year 25. Yes. Yeah. So some of it used to be like at PD, water, city services, wellness center, like all over the place. Now the whole cost of the financial software is in the finance department. Additionally, we have the 2 audits we're going to be doing, and then all of the cost of the finance department is in the finance department. I have classic employees for parks, and our unfunded liability is huge. So 3 of my employees are classic employees, and so my unfunded liability is huge. So it's about $50,000 an employee because of the unfunded liability cost. And so just for my 3 unfunded, it's $150,000 for the unfunded portion, just for this year. And next year it'll probably be like 200,000, and the year after that it'll be like 250,000. So every year the unfunded cost will continue to go up. It started in 2008 when PERS decided that their investments were not giving the results that they needed in order to pay their retirees. And so they implemented this unfunded liability. So by doing that, the cities now have to come up with, they give us a bill and they say, this is what your cost is going to be for next year. And here's your projection for the next couple of years. And so that unfunded liability is huge, and that's why we're investing in PARs. And if you're a classic employee, the cost is like 50,000. If you're a new employee into PARs or PERS, the cost is like $400. So the my department is heavily classic employees. So I have a lot of huge unfunded liabilities. So in that shot, you're going to see like last year was like 6,000 and this year's like 150,000. That's the difference.
I'd also say, I don't think we were properly accounting for each specific employees. Now, we were still paying payments, but it wasn't on line by line. So that has done that for all the city's employees. There's specific costs for PERS. So these are accurate numbers as far as what each employee actually costs.
Yeah. So and it won't just be in the finance, it's every single department. We went through and accounted for their actual hours, their actual rate, the rate increase, the health insurance, the cost for taxes, the PARS, not the PARS, the PERS cost. So every single cost is based on the actual employee that we have or the employee that we plan on hiring. And with those, we kind of have to like just think, okay, if we hire 3 people, one's gonna be family, one's gonna be married with children or just children and, you know, make some assumptions. And one's gonna be sick. Hopefully it all washes out, but what will happen is that at the end of the fiscal year, once we know our true numbers, I'll come back to council and ask for a budget adjustment, and we amend the budget if we were too high or too low on any of the numbers. And so we'll take care of that at the end of the fiscal year once everything is factored in. But we really try to nail it as close as possible to what our costs are going to be. And so this slide gives us the major funds for the city. So it shows that our general fund is going to have revenue of $13,698,425. We're going to have expenses of $13,691,019, with a total of $7,406 going to reserves. Our goal is that every year we're able to have reserves, money going into reserves. We don't want to be in the black, or we don't want to be in the red. We want to be in the black. We want to put money away. And so this is the first year that I'm here, and this is, you know, we worked really hard, like I said, with all of the department directors and with our major funds on this page. It shows it's not a huge savings or a huge amount that we're going into reserve, but it's something, and that's where we just need to start. And so parks and recreation, they're going to be, we're going to try to break them even.
Well, and so I just make a comment on that. In the past, wellness center, when the budget was approved, has historically been in the red. And there was a budget transfer late in the year to make them whole at the end of the year. We knew that it was needed, so we just made that transfer right up front. So we made sure that they're going to be whole, so then we don't have to worry about, did we spend that money already or whatever. They need additional dollars, and so that's why the transfers in this budget.
Yeah, so it's just under $500,000 that the general fund will be transferring over to Parks and Recreation in order for them to be able to break even. So we're gonna try really, really hard to stick within our budget, because any amount that the wellness center activities are over, that means we need to transfer more from the general fund over to the wellness center, or try to find additional revenues, or if the revenues don't come in the way we projected them. So it's critical that we stick to our numbers, just because that fund historically has been about $500,000 the whole on it.
The water funds, we did account for the increases in our revenue for the water charges based on the water study and the Prop 218 report. We do have several CIP projects that are going to be covered here. And we managed to be able to not hire one position that we had considered hiring. We went ahead and put that towards the next fiscal year in order to try to make sure that we are also in the black in the water fund. The sewer fund, we went through and did the exact same thing. They're going to be saving just around $2,400 to reserves. Refuse is about $1,700 to reserves, and streets is right about 50,000, 51,000 in reserves. So these are our major funds, and these, if you look at the summary budget, the summary budget actually has the information from the big budget. The budget is like 90-something pages when you add everything together. Instead of going page by page on the big budget, it's easier for us to keep track. And if you look at these numbers on the summary budget, they'll tie right back into the big budget. So like the general fund, we are going to be using, like, if you look at line 4, the very last column, 2.9 million, those are the funds that we're going to be using from the SQM settlement. We're going to be transferring in overhead from the enterprise funds of 1.6 million into the general fund. The general fund itself is going to have revenue of 9.1 million. They have expenses for operating of 9.5 million. They have a long-term debt payment of 1.6 million, which is the SQM money. We're going to have capital improvements of just over 500,000 for the general fund. And then on line number 10, the transfer out is going to be 1.9 million. That's the 1 million of SQM funds for the cars investment, 498,000 to the wellness fund in order for wellness fund to break even. And then we're going to transfer the money in order for Measure R long-term debt to be paid off. And so those are the numbers that are made up or makes up the general fund. And all of those numbers in detail are in the budget book. So the general fund revenue sources, they are on page 12 through 14 of the budget. So I'm not sure how you want, if you want to go summary this way, and or if you just want us to just continue with the
Let's
presentation.
stick with the presentation and we can go back, if there's any questions. That some of the council is thumbs up.
Perfect.
I just want to note on that page, refuse, even though there's $17,000 ahead in the past, there's been a lot of other departments like that have had negative impacts based on refuse. So streets in particular, we've taken some funds to help pay for street improvements, other, a little bit for water, sewer. This budget does not have hardly any of that going over. So we're covering our costs and our obligation to meet Valley our current rates. But if we want to help increase our streets and to do more with that, then I would strongly encourage the council to look at adjusting our refuse rates, as well as it doesn't have here, but we talked about earlier in the year, lighting and landscaping. So, those would both have to go through a 2 process, just like water and sewer did. So I just put that on. There's no action tonight on that, but I think that does need to be evaluated for both of those two funds in the future, as far as how we can get some additional revenue to help cover some of the other costs, as well as refuse rates are increasing as well. So just in order to keep pace with the increases with CPI, not CIP, with our consumer price index also needs to be evaluated.
Moving on to the next slide, we have the capital improvements that it's a second budget after the operating budget. And so this one shows, and I labeled it CIP/maintenance project because some of these projects may not necessarily be a capital improvement, it's more of a maintenance project. And so we do have the 50,000 that the finance department had. We did pulled out those carpets and put the flooring in. That was wonderful because that flooring had been there for ages. And now it doesn't smell like that. The wellness center has 105,000. They're going to be doing a pool heater and parking lot striping. The olive pool and other parks, we have 4.4 million, and some of this funding is both general fund, ARPA funds, and other grants. And so, it's not very, very big numbers, but it's not all general fund money. The water department is going to have just over 3.7 million of CIP projects. That's for well 11, well 14, well 15, a clarifier, a magnetic meter, a booster pump, an updated master plan, and an urban water management plan. Some of that money is going to be grant money. The transit center, we have the design that's in process. I believe it's 7,000. That's grant money. The sewer, 302,000. It's the storm drain dripping carousel aerator. And then the streets and bikes pedestrian, that's the $6 million that's all going to be outside, like LTD and Measure R for the $6 million.
And that's for the projects that council looked at in May and June for, Westwood, Van Ness, Central, so that's the $6 million doll from that new county. I will just highlight, I'm not gonna go line by line, but at the very back of the actual budget shows the CIP and all the different projects for the next 5 years. So overall, it's broken down into different categories. And so cumulatively on buildings and facilities, and this is not all encompassing. So there are definitely things that are not included in this, but we have $3 million roughly in upgrading facilities throughout the city. Public safety, a lot of that is being accounted for this year, so there's about $350,000 worth of projects for public safety. The generators, which we talked about earlier today, that alone is almost 1.3 million for those 7 generators throughout the city. Now, granted, that's grant funding, like I said, but we still have to put that on the CIP. Parks is over 2.7 million. Again, most of that is grant funding. Vehicles, new vehicles that we're looking at, just over $1 million. The streets, I won't even, we've got roughly 10 million on there. It's a lot more. I mean, there's so many streets on there that need it. I mean, that's easily triple, quadruple that. It's not even close. So it's laughable how much we need to do in streets in the city. The water alone, this is, I think, fairly comprehensive, but like a new surface water treatment plant that was mentioned, we consolidate the Ponyville, that's not included. That is almost 22 million. So we have a huge amount of need in some of these. Sewer is almost 5 million. As far as the new needs, as far as what we need to do with the project. And then there's $2 million in various studies that we need to get caught up with and do some different things. So I just wanted to highlight that because there's still, I'm very proud of what Soledad and our department heads have done to get us to this point, but there's still a ton of work to go. We've got a backlog of different items, so we can't rest on our laurels. Yep.
And some of the reserves will be used for the street projects, and so we're trying to find money everywhere that we can to try to make some of these projects work and do part of it this year, part of it in 2-3 years. But just like Tyler said, like there's just such a huge need that we have to just keep looking and looking, trying to figure out what we can do. Yeah, most of all, there's 2023. So, lobby is fine, it's funny. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty wrong.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Or the police don't wanna pay. So, this next slide, this has our top revenue sources for the general fund. And so we have property tax, sales and use tax, Measure O, and the utility user tax. These numbers, half of them come from the community services. We contract with them to provide us, like the data that they have in their systems and the receipts that they're seeing. And so, I know that sales and use tax, we're looking at, it's actually going down. That's the number that they professionally provided to us, even though it's like, why, how? We'll start having those conversations with them, but that's the reality of what the projection is for us for, this current fiscal year.
And it's on trend with historical data, unfortunately. So sales taxes are down, but property tax and UUT is up. So it somewhat balances out, but ultimately that means it's flat, even though our costs are.
And so our general fund,
And we just added this because I know there's a lot of questions about cannabis tax. So again, this shows how much of a huge decline that the cannabis tax has been over the last 5 years. So 5 years ago, it was $430,000 that we received. This last year, $128,000. So I would anticipate it's probably somewhat flat, but if that doesn't come in, then we're gonna have to do some adjustments later on. That's really,
now we still have an uptick. Usually when we have the farmer's market, we get more money. I could see the other one flash, but we still have. During the market.
That's good. So, again, just to emphasize, we need to continue to look at, reserves being built up, increase our revenues. We've got a lot of work. We're also looking at cutting costs. So again, mentioned energy savings, technology, there's a lot of opportunities that we can minimize some of our costs or reduce the growth of our costs and help us slow it down. I mean, theoretically, that's a good idea. But so that's what we're gonna think. That's all. So, after for some questions, it's taken a lot of time and effort. I know Soledad probably would have liked another 2 to 3 months to work on this, but we presented it now, and I think next year we'll probably start working on next year's budget and the early part of 2026. I get 2 months on it.
When are we gonna need the audit?
So the auditors have actually already started doing the audit for 24. I think their list of requests was about 93 items. We submitted about 80% of them as of Friday. So the auditors normally won't come in until the audit is already completed and giving you a report card of, these are the findings that we saw in the audit. These are the things that need to be fixed. We will have them probably here. They've started working on some of them, but I can't tell you when they're gonna finish because they're squeezing us in as they can.
So usually we did requesting to meet with us.
Oh, okay.
Because of our privacy reasons.
They have not yet. They did that.
Maybe that's good.
I did give them, they did have a list of items that they needed, like the old audits, the contact information for the old auditors, the city attorney contact. So they're working already on our audit, but I'm not sure when they'll request to meet with council or if they'll just wait till they complete the.
I have a question about the new positions that are being created. I know you said that they're rolling out in staggered timeframes, right? So there's just a number of the teacher group,
Sure, that's why. That's something that.
We need a need an increase of revenue to do in those.
If we were to keep the employee cost at today's level, they're sustainable. But employee cost is probably gonna change because health insurance is gonna go up, regular is gonna go up. Every cost associated with employee is going to probably go up. None of that's. Or what's here either. So we definitely do have to continue to work at increasing our revenues. We don't plan on, we are never gonna try to look to hire an employee that isn't needed or an employee that we're gonna bring on and then turn around and lay off. So that's never the plan. If something was to happen with the economy, we have not seen at the moment, that we're not predicting, then those are decisions that will have to be made at that time. But right now, the employees that are being brought on is because positions are have been left vacant for a while and we haven't brought them on, and so it actually creates overtime. And so we're paying for it somehow, whether it's by overtime or bringing in a temporary agency or, you know, employees who are exempt working 12 to 15 hours a day plus weekends. And that's not sustainable.
Freezing positions or. I thought on that. Now.
Well, I know these are all.
That's right, I guess that's right. I just don't want to, I want to.
Well, I think that was something we didn't really talk about, but we did formally eliminate quite a few positions that have been vacant over this past fiscal year, so they were eliminated. And then most of these new hires are actually positions that are. The exception would be with like youth sports, which council's already looked at as far as when we're getting funding specifically for that, so it's offsetting the cost.
Any further comment with 13.3? Or not? It'll be on Facebook. I think we're all getting tired. So do I have a motion for 13.3?
I'm looking really.
I have a motion for Employer, a second by Sanchez, all in favor? Aye.
Motion carries 5.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I showed up on, working Monday, and she's like. We would have to request for try that, if you have any requests. I do, does the community want to know why, like, our departments aren't, you know, speaking at the council meetings? Just some people want to hear you guys. So I think we'll start doing that, you know.
We can start doing that. I think.
Just like, you know, how you.
Like
Oh, yeah.
quarterly, I think a quarterly update from
Yeah,
department
yeah.
staggered. So, you know, next meeting, it might be one department, following meeting, another department, so that it doesn't belong.
What's the deadline? So, yeah, just that. I think it's good because they want to hear from you guys.
Right.
Go ahead. Yeah, okay, any questions, you know. All right. If there's nothing, the meeting is adjourned.
Hey, what are you